Most people say they get a lot out of Alice in doing is using it as a thought partner, as someone to bounce ideas off. This example that I'm about to show you is a perfect example of that. One of our clients in an interview was mentioning that they are doing some work with the Australian Institute of Directors, and they're actually doing a sprint on AI and the insights and perspectives. And as I was talking with this client, they were sharing, how people are viewing AI and what some pretty serious people are producing educational material around. So this is an executive group of company directors run through Sydney University. And Tony, who I was talking to, was identifying a few things in his personal experience. And what I've done is I've actually taken the transcript of that meeting and asked Alice, all right, I just want you to, had a chief of staff meeting. Can you just draw out the elements that he talked about in relation to this? I don't need to know the rest of the conversation, just this bit. And he identified a couple of key things: that AI dexterity sprint, what it is, the under the desk problem, which is people are using it quietly without telling their team. Number three, this is bigger and more impactful than the internet revolution. And, it's gone through a couple of things there. Now, Tony's insight was excellent, and it's gathered that in. Now, I've asked actually, well, so what? Why is this relevant to Alice? And, there's a couple of elements here about, why it's so strong in understanding this for Alice. Now, I'm using my chief of staff agent up here, thinking like me, communicating like me, and I've said, okay, take these and put it into a Google Doc. So it's taken all of that information. So it's taken from the transcript, done all that work, and then it's made an insights document here, which is actually, as you can see, a very well put together document. As I say, just asking Alice, please do that. And then Tony actually sent me the class notes or the summary of it. And so I've attached that to this file and said, look, here's what they're actually using. Don't touch the original insights. I want to keep those, but now take that information and do a bit of work with it. And it talks, it sort of summarizes everything. And let me show you what it's actually working on. So this is a document, an overview of the sprint, and this here is the PowerPoint of what they were going through. And so it's what Alice has done is I've attached both of those as PDFs, and Alice has read all of that and then turned that into a summary. And especially because what I'm trying to do is understand how people are using AI and more importantly how they're seeing AI, so that I can talk to them in a way that makes sense. And what this document tells us about business users and how they're interacting with AI, this is what I need to know. It's the research. They're using it like a vending machine. They're prompting it badly. They're using generic tools. They're doing it underground. They're stuck in the efficiency. Now, this is an interesting whole set of questions because Alice actually solves most of these problems. These sort of company executives are using AI in a way that is not particularly effective. So I've said, please do another Google Doc and summarize all of this. Their headline is actually that AI is eloquent but not accurate, productive but not knowledgeable. Actually, Alice is knowledgeable. Her memory, all of that sort of stuff is massively powerful, using your chief of staff in becoming a thinking partner and also managing all of this. As you can see now, I have a document here which has got a summary of all of that information. Now my team and I can look at that and actually produce some that might impact the way we message things. Now, the reason I want to show you that is because I'm in Italy at the moment. I've been walking the Cinque Terre, and I'm sitting in Vernazza having lunch after having done a big walk this morning. And I'm working on this as my thinking partner. Now, as you can see, I'm surrounded by lots of interesting people doing lots of interesting things, and I'm working with Alice on the go. Now, I happen to be on the laptop, but I'm been using the exact same thing on my phone, extremely effective. What it's doing is it is helping me think through serious challenges and come up with clear ideas. And these ideas can then be worked into go-to-market strategy and marketing in particular. So, if you aren't using Alice as a thinking partner, let me suggest you take some documents, have them summarized, or use a transcript, record a meeting. You can use the transcript right in Alice here to actually, record an entire conversation and bring it in here, or you can use Fireflies or Otter or whatever you like, and begin working with Alice. It's really about plain English prompting, and because of the depth of memory that Alice has and your chief of staff structure, you'll find a very, very efficient way of doing things. What I used to do with this would read, digest, think, take a little bit of time, and it might take me days to be able to come up with a position on this. I've been able to have Alice do all the hard work for me in minutes. And while I'm eating the most magnificent tiramisu I've had in my life, I'm working on how this impacts our content strategy, how it impacts our positioning in the market, and even how it might impact future investment in Alice. It's deep work, which I'm able to do from anywhere in the world because Alice is connected to absolutely everything. I can post a message into Slack for Dean to let him know what's going on. I can draft an email to Tony saying thank you for those insights. Everything can be done through Alice in an AI first way while I'm eating lunch, sitting here in Vernazza and roaming the world doing business. So what kind of problems are you trying to think through? Where's the documents? What conversations have you had? What resource material do you have that is just too time consuming to actually get through? This could be a really fast way of really reconsidering a strategy around a particular business issue.